Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about online case results and how you can use what you've done, your victories and your accomplishments, to move your law practice forward. My name is Dan Jaffe. I'm an attorney, and I'm also the co-founder and CEO of LawLytics. Let me find my slide there. There we go. For those of you who don't know me, I practiced law for about 10 years prior to kind of stumbling into legal marketing technology, about 10 years into it. Built a large online legal directory that was ultimately acquired by a big internet company, and then started LawLytics with my co-founder in 2011. We've been at it now for a little over 5 years, and today we're going to talk about how you leverage what you've done, specifically using the LawLytics case results module. Who is this session for? Because I see a lot of people in attendance who are LawLytics members, and then some who are not members at this point. Well, everybody's going to get a little something from this webinar. For LawLytics members, we hope that what you'll be able to do is be able to improve the effectiveness of your use of the online case results module. And for lawyers who are not on LawLytics, whether you're considering moving to LawLytics or not, we hope that the information that we're going to give you during this 20-minute or so webinar will help you understand how to better structure the case results and the other accomplishments that you display on your own website in a way that's going to be more effective for you. The goals of this session are really to understand how to leverage what you've done in the past to ensure future successes, to give you the tools to deploy them effectively, and really to inspire you to dig deeper than most attorneys typically dig when they're listing their accomplishments on their websites. Your accomplishments, and we'll get to the various classifications of those in just a moment, but they really are the most important points of social proof that you can put on your website. They tend to be even more important than recommendations that you get from from former clients and from other lawyers, and they can be so powerful because they tell stories. Now, when you do what most lawyers do, which is simply list results in one or two lines that don't mean a whole lot to non-lawyers, they're not nearly as potent as they are if you follow the method that we're going to talk about in this webinar and use your accomplishments to weave powerful stories that your potential clients can relate to. Now, when we talk about case results, we use this really as a blanket term because there's the case results engine in LawLytics, but the blanket term can cover anything that you've done that is a victory. So a successfully litigated, successfully negotiated case. But let's say you're not that type of lawyer. Let's say you have representative clients that are impressive and you want to display companies that you've worked with or whatever. The LawLytics case results module can be used for that as well. It doesn't have to be called case results from the public-facing website, and we'll get to what that looks like in a few moments. You can list deal flows in there, so if you have transactions that have gone through, and really any other form of bragging, if you will, that is relevant to your practice. This webinar is being recorded, and these slides, along with the video and audio portion of this, will be available within the coming days. So if you are inclined to take notes, you don't necessarily need to. And if you happen to have to bail out partway through this presentation, this will be available to you at some time in the near future to be able to review. Now, when we talk about displaying case results, what we see on most websites is a single page that lists all of the results in very sparse details. So victories, verdict amounts, for criminal defense lawyers, not guilty verdicts, things like that. And those don't mean a whole lot out of context. And so what we recommend, and this is exactly how LawLytics is set up, and what we'll do at the end is we'll go through and we'll actually show you how a well-done case result looks within the LawLytics context. But we recommend having an index page that lists all of your results in a visually pleasing format. those results on the index page should have links to a dedicated page for each result. And we're going to really be talking about this number 2 here, where you can really go into depth and tell the story of each result. And then within the individual results, you would have the ability to browse from one result to the next in whatever order you as the attorney or whoever is advising you chooses as optimal for the flow of your potential clients through your website. And that's something that LawLytics is set up to do, and it's something that we not only provide the software for, but we provide you guidance as far as how you do that. So if you're a LawLytics member and you are struggling with how to order your case results, let us know, and we can certainly help you with that. If you attended our webinar yesterday, which talked about building effective attorney bios, this slide will look very familiar to you. In fact, it's only slightly modified. The reason why I'm presenting it again here is that it's really important to understand how your potential clients and your referral sources are approaching the information that they're consuming about you. And so when they go to your website, they first of all want to know how much you care. And as I said yesterday, the old saying that goes something like, people want to know how much you care before they care how much you know, really applies here. Then on top of that, they want to know how enthusiastic you are about your practice, about them, about their cases. And then on top of that, once they've established that those 2 foundational criteria meet their approval, then they want to know what you've done. And this webinar will largely focus around that top of the pyramid aspect. When we talk about your case results, we want to talk about what it is meant to do, not necessarily just what it's meant to contain. So before we talk about the substance of it, let's talk about the goals. So you want to be able to tell a compelling story that inspires confidence in your potential clients or your referral sources. And that's going to mean different things to different people. So if it's for the benefit of a referral source, making a good referral makes them look good, a bad one makes them look bad. You want to inspire confidence that you know what you're doing. And so in that case, if your referral sources are lawyers or accountants or other professionals, you want to make sure that you speak their language and that you tie it all together. If it's more of a consumer-facing practice, say you do bankruptcy or criminal defense or divorce or personal injury, you want to inspire confidence directly in your potential clients. Talk to them in language that they understand. You want your story of your victories to engender trust. You want to talk about not only what you did and how great you are, but why you fought so hard, why it mattered in the context of that individual. Because when your potential clients are reading your case results, they're reading it thinking about themselves. They're reading themselves into the equation, and they're putting themselves in the shoes of the clients that you helped and that are the subject of your case result. And you want to convey sameness. And sameness is a very vague term here because it can mean a number of things, and it ought to mean a number of things. Most importantly, it ought to convey that you've been there and you've done it before. They have a specific problem. Their problem may not be exactly the same as somebody else's, but if there are similarities between something that you've successfully done in the past and something that they believe they need help with, that helps. And then you want to convey sameness in that you are on the same wavelength as them. Maybe it's similar backgrounds, maybe it's similar approaches, maybe it's similar language. You're not always going to know because you don't necessarily know the people that are reading it, but give it some thought as you write these stories of your results, and they can tie in very closely with the bio that you wrote. And if you didn't catch our bio presentation yesterday, that will be available on demand within the next couple of days as well, and we'll let you know when that's ready for consumption. You want to first and foremost tell a compelling story in your case results. And there are a lot of factors that go into it. It isn't that you ended up getting a $20 million verdict, or you ended up getting a not guilty verdict, or you ended up getting reduced jail time, or you cleared the debt, or whatever the case may be. That's the end. And that end doesn't really mean that much to somebody, because a lot of people, when they see somebody that has been successful in something, they admire it, they think it's good, they might even trust it, but they have trouble picturing themselves in those particular shoes. And so what you need to do with your story is walk them through so that they can ultimately picture themselves in the shoes of your client, because that's where you want them to ultimately end up being in most cases. So you want to start out with facts. Facts are things that people absolutely understand. You want to tell a story. If it's an auto accident, it may be that Susie was driving down the interstate. It was a Sunday afternoon. The sun was shining. She had just come from a kid's baseball game. And then the unthinkable happened. You describe what happened. You describe the frustrations that came along with it. What happened with the insurance company? What happened with the medical bills? Did they start piling up? Really make it palatable what Susie was feeling, the struggles that she was going through, and why it is that you as an attorney felt compelled to not only take her case, but to give you your life energy, or to give her your life energy, and to give it your complete effort. What was at stake for her? Were you fighting for her? Were you fighting for justice? Were you fighting for both? What was your motivation? What was her motivation? And where do those things intersect? Because that's what your potential clients want to know. They want to know that you're motivated, but that your motivation and their motivation aligned. Also talk about where it happened. Local stories, especially if your practice is hyper local, make a big difference. So this intersection is here. If you know this town, if that type of thing, you'll understand that this billboard is in an awkward place, to say the least. In fact, that type of thing. So you paint a picture that way. Then once you've laid out all of the facts, and included in these facts should be things about the client, things that humanize the client, things that humanize you. So, this client, was or is a mother of three. I felt a strong kinship with her because I also have three children. Things like that. They can make a big difference in humanizing you as well. Then once you've laid out the facts, you go on to the challenges. So really, what was it that made this case a challenge? What were the odds? What were the obstacles? Who were you facing? If it was an insurance company, talk about the insurance company's duties. Talk about the lawyer that represents the insurance company, and what their obligations are. How did you prepare for it? It's a matter of not only saying what you did, but how you got there, because the journey is a big part of it. And if you only talk about the conclusion, then they're not going to understand necessarily how much work goes into achieving the result that you did. So if you talk about how you prepared, and as you're talking about how you prepared, if you talk about why you were so motivated, why you cared about this case so much, in a way that makes it clear to that potential client that you also care about their case equally as much. Then you want to talk about the quest. The quest is, really your war story. And lawyers, especially, I used to practice criminal defense. Lawyers that are in court a lot love to tell their war stories. What happened when you put this witness on the stand? What did the judge do? What were you facing? What did you argue to the jury? Those types of things. All of those details matter. And it matters regardless of whether you were in court arguing a death penalty case, whether you were arguing a motion for summary judgment in a high stakes case where the person's future was literally at stake financially, or whether it was something where you had a complex document type issue where you're trying to provide for multiple errors in a way that's fair. Whatever the case may be, if you show how meticulous you are and you show how much effort and care you put into what you accomplished, that will go a huge way, a huge distance towards convincing your potential clients and referral sources that you're the right person for their job. You want to weave your background in. You don't necessarily want to put your bio in, but if you have something in your background that prepared you for this, you want to talk about that. And where possible, if you marry it to your bio, and you can do this by linking to your bio, you can do it by referencing it. It ties it all together without necessarily restating it all. And then finally, you get to the result, which is where most lawyers start when they're telling their success stories. Not only what was the legal result, so did you win that motion for summary judgment? Did you certify the class? Did you get the dismissal? Whatever the case may be, what was the result on the person's life? So did you win the trial that allowed the person to keep their driver's license, which allowed them to keep their job, which allowed them to send their child to college or help an elderly parent? Things like that. The deeper you go, the more relatable it is. And so you talk about the result that way. And then you want to talk about, after you talk about the result in general, how did it arm you to better serve your new clients in the future? So the person that's reading it, how does what you did in this case make you even more prepared for their case? And then you can marry it also to recommendations using the LawLytics recommendation engine. If you're a LawLytics customer, we're going to be in a couple weeks doing a clinic just on recommendations, and we'll talk about it both in the context of external recommendations on sites such as Google and Avvo, but also in the context of the LawLytics built-in client and attorney recommendation engine. And so the more you can cross-reference, the better there. And in just a moment, when we do the demo of the case result, I'll show you how to weave that together in real-world LawLytics terms. So when you think about telling your story about the result, these are just some of the things to think about. There are probably dozens of others that you can come up with on your own. The point is not to follow this formula exactly, but hopefully this slide and the one before it will be able to serve as kind of a guide or a checklist, if you will, to help you, think of things that you might not normally think of as you're writing the result. And so, why was it necessary? So what I mean by that is, why was it necessary for you to go in and have this fight? Who did it help? Talking about the person. Where did it happen? We'll show you how to use local data and maps in a moment. Why did you succeed? And why did you succeed? That can be mechanical reasons. It can be passion. It can be all of the above. Why is it remarkable? So how does it stand out from what other attorneys may have achieved? Why does it make you unique? Why does it make you the right person for them to contact without specifically saying that flat out? What were the odds? What did you learn from it? And most importantly, and this is what your potential clients want to know, is was that success that you achieved replicable? Can you get it for them? So when we're talking about structuring a case results page, like I said before, most law firm websites stop at just text and a couple lines of description at the most as to what happened. You want to start with text and really text is the foundation of it all. Text is what they'll digest, what they'll skim. It's what the search engines look through. But text doesn't always tell the whole story. You can add images, you can add audio, video, you can add maps, forms, basically anything else that you want to your case results pages. It's very easy to do in LawLytics, and we'll go over that in a moment. And then other questions that typically come up regarding results. How long should the result be? Just like we talked about yesterday in the attorney bio clinic, the result should be as long as it needs to be. If you have 5,000 words to say to describe this result because it was a case that lasted for 2 years and had all kinds of twists and turns, tell that story. That story is going to, in its full length, is going to really set you apart. Even having one story like that, where the vast majority of your competitors are not going to have any stories like that, makes you compelling. People will read that story, they'll relate to you. That will be how they identify with you. And if you can do that on multiple cases, so much the better. Who should write the result? Far and away the best person to write the result is the attorney who achieved the result. However, if that's not possible in your firm, either because the attorney is too busy or because the attorney doesn't like to write or is not a good writer, it still makes sense to sit down and interview the attorney about the result, or at least have the attorney write a rough draft and then have somebody who is skilled at writing craft it into a story. Now, what if you have results that you need to put on multiple websites? And anybody who joined our webinar a couple weeks ago about building multiple law firm websites and niche websites with LawLytics will understand the reasons why you should or shouldn't have multiple websites. Or what if your results are on a single website but cover multiple practice areas? So if you have results that go some to personal injury, some to family law, some to criminal defense for an attorney that handles a bunch of different things, as an example. How do you do that? And you really, there's no easy answer to that. That's something that as a LawLytics member, we can help counsel you about, but you'll have the ability to easily drag and drop them into whatever order you want. You may want to stagger them so you have rotating order. You may prefer to have a certain type of case first, or you may just choose whatever your most impressive results and result stories are. The good thing about multiple areas and multiple websites within LawLytics is you can choose to deploy your case results pages to as many websites as you have, as you feel are relevant. So, and then finally, how should you address mixed results? And what do I mean by mixed results? So a mixed result would be something that is maybe a victory from an attorney's perspective, but may not sound like much of a victory from a layman's perspective, as one example. So just to give you a real world example, let's say somebody comes to you and they're facing a felony charge and they're facing a presumptive sentence of 2 years in prison. And you're able to get it reduced to a misdemeanor after a lot of substantive and procedural motions that open up the door to that. You get them a deal where they're doing 6 months in the county jail with work release. Good result objectively, probably much better than they would have gotten if they went to trial. But it's a result that may be difficult to explain and may not sound all that good to people that don't know how the system works. How do you address those, or even should you address them? And it's really a decision that you have to make, but people are getting more and more savvy about what they read on the internet. If they go to an attorney's website and all they see are glowing case results, and then they go to other places, if they go to Yelp or they go to Avo, and maybe there's some negative stuff, it's almost better to address the mixed results on your own website, because then you have control over the narrative and you can explain them. So let's say you got a verdict in a personal injury case, but there was liability that was apportioned between your client and other parties. And so, while the verdict itself may have been $10 million, you only collected a fraction of that for your client. Well, how do you address things like that? I always think that the truth is the best weapon in cases like this. And the more you have of these, especially if they can be mixed in with pure undisputed victories, the more it humanizes you, the more it also creates a good set of expectation management guidelines for your potential clients, so that they're not they're coming into it with a realistic view, but also it can help really create trust with certain with clients of certain intelligent levels, I should say. And so that's something that, if you're a LawLytics member and you want help figuring that out, we can go over it on an individual result by result basis and help you get a feel for what might work. And the other thing that you can always do is just test it out. If you see that people are going to those mixed results and then they're leaving your website and not contacting you, it may be a good clue to take those off. On the other hand, if they read it and they read on and then they contact you, well, it's actually probably doing some good. So it's one of those things that there is no hard and fast rule, but I would not advise anybody to just ignore everything other than pure objective victories. So let's take a quick look at a real world example. What we're going to do is we're going to spend another roughly 5 minutes or so looking under the hood at the LawLytics control panel and the example that I'm going to show you. And then we'll do our conclusion. And then after the conclusion, we'll go ahead and open it up to questions. And I see that there are it's either hands raised or questions that have been asked. I can't tell from where I'm sitting, but it looks like there might be some questions already. If you have questions that you want to address, go ahead and put them into the GoToWebinar control panel. The questions won't be included in the recording. So if you want to hear the answers, stick around and we'll get to those in just a moment. So let's take a look at a sample site. So this is a basic sample site built with LawLytics. And what I want to show you is under About Our Firm, and this can be arranged anyway, and this case results link here can say anything. So it could say representative cases. It could say anything you want. This is just a very small spattering of index case results. And so what happens with LawLytics is you can drag and drop these into whatever order you choose. And then when your potential client clicks on one, so they click on the first one, they get prompted to go to the next one, and then they can basically browse through them so they can see. We're going to be looking specifically at this sample $10 million dog bite verdict one as our example. And let me just slowly scroll down this. It's all filler text. The only thing that makes any sense here are the headers. But it's meant to just kind of give you an idea of the structure that you can do. So we've got you saw pictures, you saw an embedded map of the location. There's a video, and so forth. And then here's a testimonial that's quoted. And then if you click this, you can have that go to the testimonial by that particular client that relates to that result. So under the hood, here's the LawLytics dashboard. Most of you who are LawLytics members will already be very familiar with this. Under the Publish tab, let's go to the Case Results module. And in the Case Results module, we'll see that these results, which are displayed on this particular sample site, are in the order that they are. Let's say, for example, we wanted to make this, because this is our best case result, let's say we wanted to make this $10 million dog bite verdict the first one that you see. So all you would do is you would take this, you would drag it up to the top, and then when we go and refresh that in a moment, we'll see that it is now the first in line. But let's take a look under the hood. So with the LawLytics case results module, you really have free reign to put in anything you want. So you've got your pictures, you've got your videos, you've got your maps. You can put in contact forms. You can put in really any other widget that LawLytics will allow you to put in. You can put in blog posts. You can put in all kinds of other things, link groups, stuff like that, which are really the subject of another webinar. But the idea is to organize it in a way that leads the reader in, that tells a story, that shows what was at stake, that talks about each thing. So you add these headers along the way. You can put in your pictures, your maps, your videos, and then this is just more for the imagination here. But you can put in bulleted lists, really whatever you want to tell your story. And you know, the longer you make these, the more compelling they oftentimes are. And then when you get to the bottom here, you can designate what practice it was. If it was in a particular court, you can put the court name in. LawLytics will include that. If there was a date range, you can put that in. When you do the summary here, the summary is what will appear here in this area. And see, now I just refreshed it, and now this one is in the order that we designated it. So the summary is what appears here, so they see it as a teaser. And then let's say you have multiple websites with LawLytics. And this is a ridiculous example because this is our demo account, so there's all kinds of them. But you know, so let's say you have 3 or 4 websites, you can designate. So right now we have it just on this one, but let's say we wanted to add it to a couple more websites. Just by clicking that and then pressing update case result, we'll be able to have it display across as many of the LawLytics powered websites that we have and we want it to. Now, incidentally, for those who are LawLytics members, the title of your post becomes very important, because what happens is LawLytics will actually give the page that it creates for this individual result the title that you give it here. And that's important not only for search engine optimization, but it's also important for if people are looking specifically for it using this, or for something like it using the search engines. For example, let's say this occurred in New York. If we were to change this to $10 million dog bite verdict in New York City, for example, that may make it more relevant. So you want to think about where your readers are, what they're doing, what they may be questioning in Google about, to be able to ultimately find what you want them to see. And so when you do that, it will update it, and you'll see up here in the tab, this is the title of the page as a search engine see it. So let's go back to the slides here, and we'll go ahead and go back into presentation mode. That's really the bulk of the presentation for today. If you're a LawLytics member and want help with your case results, either crafting them, ordering them, figuring out what kind of garnish to add to them, let us know. You can always submit a support ticket or call us anytime. If you're not a LawLytics member and are thinking about becoming a member and want some advice on your case results, we're happy to take a look at what you have, advise you on the best ways to present those, and talk to you about other things as well. Our contact information is obviously right there. With that, we're going to go ahead and end the substantive portion of this webinar, and we will open it up for questions.